Fighting games have a buttons problem. What do I mean? I've been playing the 2XKO beta a lot, and one of the biggest complaints I've seen about the game is actually about the game's control scheme. Let me explain. Most fighting games have some combination of lights, mediums, and heavies, and sometimes they have a unique attack button as well. Something like Drive in BlazBlue, or Trait in Injustice, DBFZ Key Blast, etc, etc. Now, however many buttons a game might have, it's uncommon that it exceeds 6 buttons. Special moves tend to not have their own buttons, they tend to have motion inputs. Things like quarter circles forward and back, half circles forward and back. And 2XKO has a 6-button layout as well. The game has a light, medium, and a heavy attack along with a button for tag actions like calling in a partner or calling an assist. The controversial thing there is the special move buttons. And you heard that right, buttons, because there are 2. There's a special move 1 and special move 2 button. Rather than having motion inputs that almost basically every other fighting game has. Now, to be honest, this is all well and good, but for example, the game has a 2-button dash, so you can move pretty cleanly this way, but this is not actually the fastest you can move. So there's a couple problems with this. You can try to use the old style plink dashing from Marvel, and that's actually pretty good if you're familiar with it. But if you're not familiar with it, either doing that way or tapping 2 buttons, and eventually you're gonna kind of be slightly off on pressing the 2 buttons, generally giving you an attack you don't want. Now, to compensate and fix this, you could add a dash button, which I have, but this would add a 7th button to your layout, and it's on my pinky. So you can actually see by Yasuo's feet, that is my layout. I use a fight stick, so I have L, M, and H, and then special move 1, special move 2, tag, so assist stuff, and then dash is way down here on my pinky. This game also has a 2-button parry like Street Fighter 6. Now this is on light and heavy, so I don't use a macro for this personally, but a lot of people recommend that you do, and I'm also personally thinking about one. And if I did do that, it would be down here in the bottom right, which the game actually doesn't show, which I'm kind of surprised, but it shows me hitting L and H at the same time for 8 buttons. Now, most people watching will be like, well, okay, that sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. I play on pad, so I'll just assign those to shoulder buttons. And I think this is where the real discussion comes in. So if we talk about fighting games, say, made before, I don't know, like 2014 or earlier. So what are these games made for? Arcades. This era has games like Guilty Gear Xrd, Persona 4 Arena, BlazBlue, Street Fighter 4, and various versions of that game, along with Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which is a console game, but it's based off Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and previous Marvel fighting games, and those games are in arcades. So those games tell you how you're supposed to play the game, because you're supposed to go somewhere and play those games on the peripherals that are given to you in the arcade or wherever a cabinet is available. And for those games, whether or not you're able to play on other controllers is mostly an afterthought. In my personal case, the main reason I play on a fight stick was because I wanted to play fighting games in arcades so that I could play the games earlier. I think Street Fighter and Guilty Gear are really clear examples of this. Street Fighter has 6 attack buttons, so light, medium, heavy, punches on the top, kicks on the bottom. And GG is a 5-button game, punch, kick, slash, heavy slash, and dust. While there were plenty of console-only fighting games in the past, most people, I would say, would not take most of these fighting games very seriously besides Mortal Kombat and Injustice. So I really wouldn't say fighting games started to be universally designed with consoles in mind first until around Street Fighter V in 2015. If someone's been gaming for a while, it's not too crazy to ask them to assign buttons to shoulder buttons, especially if you've been playing on Sony consoles. If you're playing on PlayStation, you have 4 shoulder buttons, so if you've been playing games on PlayStation for a long time, you're very familiar with doing this. Revisiting 2XKO, while the 6-button layout works for fight sticks and leverless controllers, pad players can very easily set things to shoulder buttons, so the parry and dash problem is mostly not a problem for that peripheral. And I'm sure that in 2XKO and pretty much every fighting game that's being released, there is likely, again I'm pretty sure, discussion on how accessible the layout is for both people who are playing in general and new players that are going to try the game. In 2xKO's case, I definitely think the layout could be tighter if you had motion inputs in the game or if there was an option for it, but I don't think that changes the fact that if we're assuming that the most common peripheral is pad, it's good for pad. And anyone who's hardcore enough or is willing to spend a couple of $100s on a leverless controller or a fight stick will find a way to make it work anyway. But I think it's unfair to point at 2xKO and Riot Games and be like, that's the game with the problem. Because there are a few of examples of this with games that are out right now. I've been thinking about this buttons thing quite a bit in the past couple of weeks, but this tweet from K7 really brought it back to the top of my mind. I hate that people are complaining about 2xKO controls when Marvel Tokon has a nearly identical control scheme. Y'all pick and choose when you want to hate on a game, and it's weird. And I pop in, not quite actually moment, but I think 2x gets the brunt of it because you don't have the option for motion inputs. He follows up by saying, I agree, I think having the option to do motions makes it a lot more bearable, but unique and quick skill in Tokon feel a lot like S1, S2 to me. So people that are raging about that are kind of losing me. And I respond again with, the unique button is an attack. It reminds me of Drive and BlazBlue, and another fighting game I played, Injustice, has the trait button is kind of like that. So I want to touch on a few fighting games and try to show y'all what I mean. The Marvel Tokon beta was recent at the beginning of the month, and I used a layout very similar to my BlazBlue layout. Here is my video game controller by Punk Workshop. It's the current arcade stick that I'm using right now. So I had light, medium, and heavy, and unique. So this is like my BlazBlue layout from back in the day. But there's a dash button, and like Strive, I put the dash button in the same spot because it's also an Arc Sys game. And then it's a team game, so you have the tag button here. But also, there's a special move button, which I put all the way over here. And that is because I played Granblue versus the original one, and having a one button invincible anti-air is really good in any game. So I was like, I kind of need that, so I had the special move button. On top of that, there are plenty of toggles. So there's the special move button and the dash button, and there's an 8th button, which is quick assemble, quick tag. I literally don't know what this button does because I didn't use it, and I only had one session on the game. Now, last month, I played Granblue Fantasy Versus Rising for the first time, the sequel to Granblue Fantasy Versus. I played in the Grand Slam, similar to the Stage Jam Slam, but hosted by Ultima Shadow. And don't worry if you missed that, I am planning on making a video about that. I thought it was a pretty unique and fun experience. But for that game's layout, bringing out Old Faithful, we have light, right? But I decided to use my old Granblue layout. So I have light, medium, heavy, unique, kind of like Marvel Tokon. But then to the right of heavy, I had special move. And under that, I had the block button. The block button is very necessary for Granblue because if you don't use it, then you'll be vulnerable to many silly left-right mix-ups that you have no business actually taking because that button is there. Basically, you should only be taking strike throw, some plus frames, and if the character is like really good, like high-low. But then you can also do the famous should have been Evo winning button 66L on a dash button. So once again, I had to use my pinky. I had to use this fella right here so I could do 6XL. On top of that, Granblue Fantasy Versus Rising has a ton of toggles in the game, but probably the one that stands out the most to me out of all the many options you have to customize your controls is the ability to turn off charge inputs, even though the game has a special move button, which is like, what? Like what? Reviewing Street Fighter, we have light, medium, heavy, punches on the top, kicks on the bottom. But I've heard many many players of Street Fighter say that the game requires both a parry button and a drive impact button, which again is 8 buttons. And even in Guilty Gear, the game that I pretty much still my main game essentially, that game is a 5-button game. And I use what you would call the classic Guilty Gear layout. So this is punch, kick, slash, heavy slash, dust. but this game has a dash button, so you put it here. It's really important. That's right in between punch and dust. And for me, that's it. I use 6 buttons and I'm very comfortable with this. But when I tell other Guilty Gear players this, of all skill levels, I often receive comments on how do you play the game without a Roman cancel macro and a faultless defense macro, which if I had those would again be 8 buttons. So that's a bunch of games we went through. What can be done about this? Well, the easy answer is you make your own fighting game. Honestly, you make a fighting game where this is not a problem. But that aside, the real answer is it depends. Keeping things as it is, as in just being fine with it, again, I think is okay, because if you are into the genre enough to spend money on another peripheral like a leverless controller or a fight stick, then you're gonna make it work. If the developers are going to add these quick inputs, like shortcuts, especially for things like special moves and things, then they should go all the way and give you more options. I did poke a little fun at Granblue, but Granblue has a ton of flexibility on various things you can do to your control scheme. And I think 2XKO specifically got the brunt of this because it has, I don't want to say it's a clunky layout necessarily, but it's a very unfamiliar one for many players. And you also don't have the option to do that much to it. And if it had the same option as Tokon, where you could choose to do motion inputs or use the simple inputs on one button, I don't think you would hear about this at all. It's not like 2XKO is the only game with a special move button, but I'm pretty sure it's the only one that has 2 special move buttons. And I've been playing a lot this past week, revisiting my boy Yasuo, and Yasuo actually makes so much sense with the 2-button layout. It's honestly crazy, but when I try other characters, it's always kind of clunky, especially because there's somewhat of a language of fighting games of you expect a move that travels really far that's in a projectile to be a quarter circle forward, or maybe a charge input. You expect anti-air special move to be a DP input. So having these on S1 and S2 makes learning characters just kind of weird until you spend a day on them or so. I'm sure the developers of the game probably went back and forth a lot on this design decision, as it's one of the main things that people comment on the game. I personally think we have a lot of examples of fighting games with simple inputs that work. In my experience, games like Persona 4 Arena and Dragon Ball are perfect, and for a more recent example, something like Street Fighter 6's modern controls taking a simpler approach to control schemes seriously for once is also pretty good. In Persona and Dragon Ball's case, they both have auto combos that kinda do something. From as far as I know, Persona is the first fighting game with auto combos, and that was like the big drama of Persona when it came out, was the fact that you could press one button and do a combo. That game only has 4 buttons: A, B, C, D. A, B are physical attacks and C, D are persona attacks. Everyone has a reversal and it's on 2 buttons, B and D, and pretty much everything in the game is a quarter circle and supers are double quarter circles. In Dragon Ball, everything is a quarter circle, including supers, and there's the occasional down-down input. I think we've long gone past in fighting games the time of like, oh, you know, this game has no buttons, no hard inputs, it's such a baby game. Because what happens is once people actually get their hands on the game and start digging into the system, whatever they're given, they're going to push that thing to the absolute limit. This combo in Dragon Ball FighterZ is pretty much everything we've been talking about. All this is buttons and quarter circles. This is the entire combo. Buttons, quarter circles. And you watch this. If I didn't tell you that, you would be like, damn, look at all this sauce. I can't believe that you killed them off the 2M, bro. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, definitely feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I've been really stewing on this for a while because it just keeps coming up in regards to 2XKO. I both enjoy 2X and also have problems with 2X, but I think this buttons thing is kind of unfair a little bit. So I really want to know what y'all think about this. If you're looking for coaching, by the way, for fighting games, I do it for Guilty Gear. I'm going to do it for 2XKO soon. I just got to learn the game more. It's over at metafy.gg/LordKnight. You can support the channel also on patreon.com/LordKnight as well. I stream on weekdays pretty much every weekday. at twitch.tv/LordKnight. We hang out there, record videos for the second channel, which is LordKnight Chronicles. Working on bringing that back up. Like and subscribe if you guys feel like it, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.